After months of silence, questions, and countless rumors, the truth about Dr. Tony Evans finally began to unfold, but not in the way anyone expected. For a long time, people whispered about his sudden absence from the pulpit. Some said he had retired quietly. Others claimed his health had started failing, and a few even spread stories of hidden personal struggles behind the scenes. The Christian community was left confused because for decades, Dr. Evans had been a strong voice, a leader, and a man who never stepped away from his calling. And then suddenly he was gone from the spotlight, and no one knew why. You won't believe how quickly the silence turned into one of the biggest controversies the church world has seen in years. Let me tell you, this is how it all started. His congregation noticed he wasn't preaching with the same consistency as before. Listeners who tuned into his broadcasts began to hear old sermons being replayed instead of new ones. His social media, once full of encouragement and fresh words, became quiet. The silence grew heavier with each passing week, and soon whispers began to spread everywhere. Where is Dr. Tony Evans? Why has he stepped back? People wanted answers, but none came. This is where it gets interesting. The less he spoke, the louder the rumors became. Some truly believed he was seriously sick. Others thought he was done with preaching altogether. And a few even dared to suggest there were problems within his ministry that he wanted to hide. But here is the shocking part. While everyone was debating and assuming, one voice finally came forward. It wasn't Tony himself, but his wife. She broke the silence, and what she said changed the entire story. She confirmed that yes, Tony had stepped away, yes, it was serious, but no, this was not the end of his ministry. In the craziest part, she hinted that his return would not just be a normal comeback, it would be a new chapter, something completely different from what people had seen before. Destiny took an unexpected turn when her words spread across the community because instead of closing the rumors, they actually opened up even more questions. What makes this story different? Unlike many pastors who step back and fade quietly, Tony's silence became a global mystery. His wife's confirmation gave hope to his followers, but at the same time, it stirred more controversy. Was his return going to be a revival? Was it a reshaping of his entire ministry, or was it simply a man taking time to rest and prepare? No one really knew, but the anticipation grew stronger. The more his wife spoke, the more people realized this was not a story about retirement, but about something much bigger. The world was now waiting for his next move, and all eyes were on him. When people look back at Dr. Tony Evans' life and legacy, it became clear why his silence created such a storm. For decades, he was not just another pastor preaching sermons on Sundays. He was a spiritual father to millions. His voice, strong and filled with conviction, had been heard not only in churches, but also on radio, television, and conferences around the world. His ministry, The Urban Alternative, had touched more than 130 countries, and his books had sold in the millions. Families leaned on his teachings in their darkest hours. Pastors called him a mentor, and believers from all backgrounds found comfort in his words. This is how his absence felt so unusual. It was not simply that a preacher had gone quiet. It was that a guiding light suddenly dimmed and the world noticed. You won't believe how fast this silence turned into endless speculation. Social media platforms started buzzing with videos and posts. Titles like "The Truth About Tony Evans' Absence" or "What They're Not Telling You" flooded YouTube and blogs. Every opinion added more fuel to the fire. Some were convinced his health had collapsed. Others argued that he wanted to step back and focus on his family, especially after the heartbreaking loss of his first wife, Lois, in 2019. And then, of course, there were those controversial whispers, the kind that spread like wildfire. Maybe there were ministry disagreements, maybe even burnout or hidden struggles. None of these claims had solid proof, but in the absence of answers, people were quick to believe anything. This is where it gets interesting. The silence itself became the stage for the controversy. But here's the shocking part. Many didn't just wait for Tony Evans himself to speak. They waited for one person, his wife. They believed if anyone could calm the rumors, it would be her. And when she finally stepped forward, she didn't come with a rehearsed statement or cold facts. She spoke as a woman who had walked through everything by his side. She admitted that yes, Tony needed to step back. Yes, it was serious, but she also assured the world that his story was far from over. Let me tell you, the way she described it wasn't about weakness, it was about renewal. She said his time away was used for rest, reflection, and to prepare for a stronger future in ministry. The craziest part was that she didn't frame his return as just slipping back into the pulpit like nothing had happened. Instead, she called it a new season. That one phrase set off even more conversations. People began to ask, what does a new season mean for someone like Tony Evans? Would he change the way he preached? Would he shift his ministry's direction? Would he become even more powerful after this pause? Destiny took an unexpected turn when her words spread, because instead of ending the rumors, her statement breathed life into them. And suddenly, people weren't just asking if he would return, they were asking how he would return and what that return would really look like. When the details of Dr. Tony Evans' absence slowly started coming into focus, people realized there was more depth to the story than they had first imagined. His wife's words hinted that this break was not about defeat, but about survival, restoration, and a chance to find strength again. To understand that, you have to look at the painful chapter he had walked through. Back in 2019, Tony lost his beloved wife, Lois, to cancer. She wasn't just his life partner, she was his ministry partner, his strongest supporter, and the one who carried the weight of the mission alongside him. Losing her was not only a personal tragedy, but also a public heartbreak, because everyone who followed his ministry saw the impact it left on him. You won't believe how deeply that loss affected his spirit, his family, and even his work in the church. Let me tell you, this is how the journey of silence really began. After Lois passed away, Tony pushed through the grief for years. He kept preaching, kept teaching, kept leading, and many thought he was as strong as ever. But no one can carry that kind of pain forever. Combined with age, stress, and the heavy demands of leading a megachurch in a global ministry, the burden began to show. Some close to him whispered that he was exhausted. Others noticed signs that his health may have been struggling. And then came the reality. After decades of nonstop work, his body and his heart simply needed time to rest. This is where it gets interesting. Instead of admitting defeat, he quietly stepped back, choosing rest and reflection over pushing himself past the breaking point. But here's the shocking part. Many in the church world misunderstood this silence. Some took it as weakness. Some even thought he was finished with ministry. What makes this story different is that his wife's statement showed the complete opposite. She revealed that this pause was not an ending, but a preparation. It was a season of recharging, of seeking clarity, and of hearing from God about what was next. She even reminded people that Jesus himself took time away to rest and pray, proving that stepping back was not failure, but wisdom. The craziest part was how the pressure of public expectation had made things even harder. People expected him to always be strong, always be preaching, always be leading without pause. Admitting that he needed space could have felt like letting others down. Yet, destiny took an unexpected turn when his wife spoke, because she reminded everyone that even spiritual leaders are human and they too must find time to heal. Her words didn't just defend Tony, they changed the conversation. Suddenly, his absence wasn't seen as weakness anymore. Instead, it became a testimony of faith, resilience, and restoration. And now, with the truth revealed, People started to wonder if this new season of his ministry could be even more powerful than the decades that came before. When the news finally spread that Dr. Tony Evans was preparing to return, the reaction was nothing short of explosive. Churches, social media groups, and Christian leaders across the world began to talk about it as if it were a global event. For decades, Tony Evans had been a voice of authority, clarity, and encouragement. The thought that his pulpit might stay silent forever had left many uneasy, but now hope was alive again. You won't believe how quickly anticipation grew. People weren't just expecting another Sunday sermon. They believed this comeback would be history in the making. Let me tell you, this is how the excitement built up. Some followers imagined he would return slowly, preaching here and there. Others were convinced he would step back with more passion than ever before, delivering messages with a fresh fire after his season of rest. Pastors from different churches began to share their support, saying his voice was needed more than ever in a time of confusion and spiritual uncertainty. This is where it gets interesting. The community wasn't just celebrating the return of a preacher, they were waiting for the rise of a renewed leader, someone who had faced grief, exhaustion, and silence, yet chose to return stronger. But here is the shocking part. His wife's statement not only confirmed his return, it also hinted at something much deeper. She said this next season would not just be about picking up where he left off, but about stepping into a new direction. That left people wondering what kind of changes were ahead. Would his ministry shift focus? Would his messages carry new themes shaped by his personal struggles? Would the structure of his work change to fit a broader vision? The craziest part was that no one had clear answers, and this mystery only kept the story alive. What makes the story different is how Tony Evans' journey of silence turned into a story of resilience. Unlike so many leaders who disappeared due to scandal or failure, Tony's story became about restoration. His absence, instead of being an ending, prepared him for a beginning that could be even more powerful than what came before. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and his comeback was no longer just about him. It became a testimony for every believer who has faced loss, fatigue, or doubt, yet found the strength to rise again. So now, as the world waits for the moment he steps back into that pulpit, one thing is certain. This will not be just another sermon. It will be a symbol of hope, strength, and faith. And when it happens, it won't only mark a new chapter for Dr. Tony Evans. It will mark a new chapter for everyone who has followed his journey, proving once again that even in silence, God was preparing something greater